All right, traders, welcome to the end of the week video. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and pretty action-packed day, I would say, with the jobs numbers this morning. Things were kind of calm in the middle of the day. You know, really we're kind of hoping that the lows would hold for the day. They looked a little bit sketchy around that 1 o'clock time frame, and we managed to kind of bounce, and volatility really kind of fell through the floor, which was nice, right? So let's go over the jobs report. Also, the housing data that kind of got a backseat. It's the jobs report first Friday of the month that is the most important thing, and I think it was really a bit shocking in terms of how light the jobs number was. You're going to hear a lot about that, so I won't speak too much about this. I'll talk more about today's price action. But yeah, came in 20K versus, already a lower than expected, or much lower than last month, I think, because the number was brought down because of the government shutdown. But still, it was very light, 20,000, right? So, and then the negative thing about this was wages actually ticked up a little bit, right? And that's kind of what the Fed looks at. But I have a hard time believing that the Fed is going to. So there was a little bit of sticker shock with the number this morning. But I think once you kind of like rationalize it, you realize that the Fed isn't going to be raising rates anytime soon. And that's kind of what we got from the ECB earlier in the week. We're going to have pretty dovish. Right now, the data out of China is bad, right? I mean, the export data last night was horrific. But they're doing things, right? They're stimulating. So, as they say, and I forget who said the saying, but I agree with it. Don't fight the Fed, right? And they're not going to be doing much at this point. So you just kind of have to. So let's talk a little bit about the price action, what we saw this week. If you did not see any of my videos from this week, I don't really want to repeat because I do like a 15-20 minute video every day. And I talked about, why we were seeing the market go down, and it's a combination of factors. But bottom line, my thought is we had, I don't know, I didn't count it because it really doesn't matter. But I think we had 8 or 10 weeks in a row of being up. It's only logical to kind of think that people are going to take some money off the table after that kind of a run. So, and if you're not realizing that, and I don't mean to be insulting or arrogant in any way, but if you don't realize that after 8 or 10 weeks of up gains that sellers might come in to take profits, you kind of have to think about what, your process, and think about, and this shows up in the technicals as well, which I'm not going to go through because we've talked about that enough this week, but it just is what it is, right? I mean, after a big run, either up, or down, when there's a big move up, sellers come in, right? All those people that loaded the boat in the beginning of January are going to take some profits when we get overbought. And, same thing when there's been sellers in this market. They're going to come in and cover shorts like we saw towards the end of December as well, right? So, and buyers come in when they think it's a good value area. So again, this is not rocket science, but sometimes it does help to kind of take a step back and just realize how much of a run. Because I think a lot of traders that I saw on Twitter, they seemed confused. And if you're confused about the price action, just please take a step back and realize how far we've come so fast, right? Really overbought. And also, the other thing to put in perspective, which I'm going to talk a little bit about strategy, is we're in March. You don't have to try to make all these gains and try to crush it in a week or two. Be very patient and realize every month you're going to face challenges. And you don't need to try to win, go crazy and double your account every week or every month. It's a process. It's a long. You want to play for the long game, not the short game. So you got plenty of time. If you had a rough week, don't worry about it. You got a whole year. The main thing is not that I always come back to, and I have to kind of tell myself this too, is when I'm having a bad day, sometimes you want to be aggressive to try to get that money back because you kind of feel foolish. Like, hey, why am I down? But you just want to you don't want to be, in my opinion, you don't want to have the mindset that you want to be super aggressive to try to get that money back. You've got plenty of time. Take a deep breath, go for a walk, and realize that you're going to get caught off guard sometimes. So for me, I thought that we were due for digestion. I personally wasn't expecting, so where did we finish for the week? We finished, and I'll start to go through the numbers, which I always like to do this every week, but I started populating the news. This is from last week's newsletter, but I just populated the top line. Yeah, we finished down 2%. Really, the damage was done in the small caps, down 4%. So if you own a lot of smaller names, it hurt a bit to be down 4% in 1 week. The Qs were also down 2% for the week. The emerging markets and both in international emerging markets and developed markets, they also got hit pretty hard too. They were down 2%. And then TLT and gold were both up. They haven't really had too many positive weeks in a while. So the good thing from this is, yeah, all those overbought levels have been burned off. We still are facing major resistance, so that'll be to be determined. And I think you just have to be patient with that, right? We could go, look at that in just a second. But it's good to have gold and maybe bonds go up for a week because those things probably were kind of lagging for a bit. So again, this shouldn't be too dramatic. Although, like I said, I wasn't looking for as much of a down week. I wasn't looking for the small caps to be down 4% this week. So that caught me a little bit off guard. Sorry, where is my performers for the week, which I have to kind of reformat. What did well? The gold miners and utilities. So it was basically risk off. The home builders actually did pretty well this week, which was kind of odd, but there was a broker upgrade in the area. And I mentioned those housing data this week was not all that bad. Look at the energy names, down 7%. I was in a small OIH trade, and I'm glad I kind of stopped myself out of that. I always define my targets as well as my stops in the beginning of the trade. So if it hits a stop, I'm out. And I did that, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? I forget. It's been a long week. But, I'm very happy. All the stops that I've taken, I'm really happy because what I'm doing is reducing risk a little bit. Unfortunately, it's not at the highs, but it's just not the end of the world. And if we have more of a pullback, my mindset is a little bit more clear rather than worrying about all these positions that I have on. So, and then I could kind of fully reset and then look at things more objectively and go from there. But I've got a chart up of the VIX. The VIX was bid all week long, from a low level. I talked about the VIX in yesterday's video. So if you get a chance, if you didn't see it, go through there because I really spent some time on that. But yeah, it looks like clearly we went higher than what we've been in the last couple months because we just really haven't had any volatility. But notice we didn't get to the 20 range. I know some shorts were kind of doing victory laps, which I really don't have to understand because a lot of them have been wrong for a couple months. And I don't know. I really don't understand what people look at. I saw a couple people say, "Hey, great job hanging in there with your short." If you've been short for 2 months, you've gotten or a month, you've gotten absolutely smoked. So just because the VIX and the market went down a couple days, you still have gotten annihilated. So yes, the market is going to eventually go down a little bit. So, but I don't get people's mindset. I saw some people doing a little bit of high fives about saying they've called, the market going down when they've been saying that for the last month, 2 months. That's not how it works, guys. You can't say I'm bearish and the market's going down for 2 months, and then when it finally happens after you've lost all that money, maybe you made 5% of the money back. I don't know. I'm guessing here, but just like on the other side too, you can't say that you're bullish in a down market, and then you get that one day where you're up, and you can't give yourself a pat on the back. But anyway, that's a whole nother story, and I like to rant a little bit. So, but anyway, this looks like we kind of stalled out here in the VIX. And I think looking at today's price action, I think this was really important. What I do during the day, So let me go through the price action, and I'll talk about, if you're not part of our Twitter feed, I will show you kind of just what you get during the day. So this is what S&P futures look like. This was the support, right? I mean, we kept on going through several different lines. Like if you play the game like the old cartoons, if you cross this line, maybe it's this line. Maybe it's, okay, if you cross this line. So we did, break a couple things here, the short-term moving averages, but we made the move all the way. This is what's known for value area. If you're familiar with value areas, it's called an 80% move. Once you're inside value, there's an 80% chance that you go all the way through it. And I think we did that. So that move is complete. So we'll have to see next week if we hold up here. But I think a very positive sign that we did not close on the lows. Let's look at how we went through all the way the value area to the bottom here. That is a sell signal here, but we'll just have to kind of wait and see what we do next week, right? And nobody knows that, so I'm not going to claim that I know what's going to happen next week. It's very difficult when you start below value to kind of get back. You really need some pretty decent buy pressure. So this was yesterday. We kind of had this fake out around lunchtime, around 11:35. And it looked like we were going to start to kind of take off to the upside, but we ran right into that resistance and failed. We did this again right around the same time today, which I found really odd. Right at 11:25, I don't know, maybe somebody has a buy program that they're initiating at 11 o'clock, and it's like they're buying over 15-20 minutes, and that's it. But we did get back, so this was a fake out move, but then we did this at the end of the day. Again, very good, because I think if we would have finished on the lows, it would not have been good. I mean, look at what the S&P did here. Burst through where we were, and again, this is right around 1 o'clock today. It looked like we might break in, but we held pretty nicely there. So that makes me a little bit more optimistic for next week, the fact that we did not. So I did a lot of watching and looking at some positions that I like on my book, and I added to a few things, but you'll never really see me jump in with 2 feet ahead of a weekend, and especially before we've basically have determined whether or not we're going to bounce or not, right? So you just won't see me do that. But this is this is what I do, and I'm really excited about the Twitter feed that we've come up with here the last couple months, or kind of made it more detail oriented. So this is what I do all day long for members, is really kind of talk about the option flow. We'll talk about the trading contest that we've got going on, and I'll try to update that once every couple of days. What we were seeing this morning, where we just didn't get that breakdown in the VIX, we had a couple tests of it. This is what it looked like. Somebody asked me about this earlier. They said, do I have this up at all times? Absolutely. The VIX, which is just for the S&P, which some people don't know that, but the VIX measures short-term volatility, 30-day volatility for the S&P. The VXN is for the Qs. The RVX is the volatility for the IWM, for the small caps. The VIX finished down 3% on the day after spiking up, so that's pretty good. And we really didn't get that breakdown crossing the 200 period moving average in the VIX till about 2 o'clock today, and then it really settled in there pretty decently. So. But that's kind of what I said. Here we go. VIX is starting to move down. You could see a couple of my trades. I got out of my DHI trade, which I've been holding for about a month today. Just actually got tired of looking at it. Was talking about this IWM level, which we talked about yesterday, and I said, basically, so I do a lot of hand holding through the day. A couple of charts that I'm watching for next week. No problem mentioning these. 5 CLF. Here's where I really like to try to add value during the day. I said sometimes you just have to wait a little bit until the trade presents itself, rather than force trades. I said this afternoon will be important. If we close on the lows, we may have more downside. So I said I have no reason to really add a lot of risk here. And then once I saw us kind of breaking down in that VIX, I started to do things. Managed to get out a little bit of Zscaler, which was a trade we put on yesterday. My goodness, what strength in some of these names. I added to some Splunk that I put on yesterday, which I like that name in here. Sent out the option activity. Interesting, in end of the day, speaking of the software names, Coop saw some calls right here. You can see on the left part of your screen. Right at the end of the day, 4 minutes to go, some June and April calls traded, swept both of those. So yeah, we could talk a little bit about that. What names that I see that there's strength in. I mean, look at what I mean. It's not even like there was volatility today in names like Zscaler. AYX really frustrating for me. I missed my target by literally about 4 cents, I think. So I'm still in this. My whole idea was to go to get this thing. We bought it here and looking for a move through value. Maybe I was a little bit greedy here because we did touch it. I just was about 5 cents away. So for now, I'm in it. I did like the relative strength that we saw in this group. Just a few other names that I've got my eye on for next week. Workday, but really this group, right? I mean, acting much different. And I've been, talking my head off about the strength that we're seeing in this group. Now, granted, the weekly charts don't look that great in some of these names because of this. So you're just going to have to take things day by day. Kind of looks like a reversal bar. But that's where the strength is. And so sometimes you kind of have to overcome, what you're seeing on the weekly, charts, which looks like a reversal bar. Maybe that's all it reverses. So we'll see. Again, you have to take it day by day. But for some of these names to be basically up all day, I mean, the my index that I created. I created an equal weighted basket of all the software names out there, so we can kind of look to see what some of those names were that outperforms. Where's my software index? There it is. And then movers for the day. Yeah, Zscaler was one of the best ones. STNA also did very well. TTD. This had its analyst day the other day. I had a small trade on. I got out of it. But look at the daily chart. Really found support right where it needed to on that top of value, and putting in a flag at this point. SAP was also up. Zendesk was also up. I mean, and a weak tape, right? I mean, there was some names that were down. Okta had earnings. CTSX had some scandal go on about a data breach today, but Okta actually did not do too bad. I tell you, I listened to the conference call last night in Okta. It was impressive, just like Salesforce's was. So I think perhaps that maybe the sellers got a little bit overzealous. I would keep an eye on Okta next week because I think that they delivered. So I'm not really sure why that they got hit so hard. Maybe because they announced a purchase at the same time. And then one other area was the semis, and we'll kind of leave it here for the week, as my video is always a little bit longer. But look at this: the semis finished basically positive for the day. We saw some call buying. Check out this version point of control that it tagged. How crazy is that? And again, this is why I have these on my screen, right? I don't draw these in. It's a version point of control because price did not go through this value area back here. But oops, I don't want to draw a trend line. But man, I mean, there we go. And I should be able to zoom in here. But to a T, and reversal all day long. Got rejected here around 11:30, but managed to go higher. One name, just a little bit about today's option activity, just a couple seconds here before we wrap up for the weekend. Yeah, look at Western Digital. Call buyer in the beginning of the day. I did not chase. Keep in mind, again, I think the call buyer in Western Digital probably did not make any money on it. This was at 9:42. So again, always important to foot where it came in. Yeah, so they probably bought here, but that's a couple times where we've seen Western Digital calls this week. So they did not make any money on this trade today. And just important to realize that. I know some people on Twitter, they like to look at the end print and they don't I don't know. It's like they're trying to fool people. But that call buyer did not make any money on that trade. There was a couple other notable trades. Zoetis saw some calls. That chart did not appeal to me. BZUN saw some January longer data calls. Cliffs, which is the name on my watch list for next week, don't have a position in it. A little bit of gold buying, a little bit of NRG, and I mentioned that Coop trade. So we'll leave it there for the weekend. If you like what you see in terms of what we do with our private Twitter feed and the hand holding, you can email me cfromhertz at gmail.com, or just reach out to me on Twitter. Happy to kind of quote you a price for what we're doing for that, and as well for our regular all-day trading room that we have open. So certainly go ahead and reach out to me. Have a great weekend, everybody, and thanks for watching.